All right. Hi, everybody. We are live. I have Ashley here with me, and we are learning how Ashley was able to go from major meltdown city, chaos, tension in the home, to keeping the peace and feeling like she had to just give in to her youngest HSC, to now feeling calm, capable, confident, cool, collected, and knowing exactly what she needs to do to support her children in experiencing their emotions and effectively advocating for themselves without meltdowns. So, welcome, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah, so why don't you go ahead and tell everybody, who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your family, and then we'll get started.
Okay. My name's Ashley. I'm married and we live in Northern California. And I am fortunate enough to have two HSCs, a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. My daughter is 6, my son is 9.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm a therapist. I work with adults and I also work with highly sensitive people. And so
Yeah.
but there is still a lot for me to learn here.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we're here, right? And so you just graduated boot camp a couple of weeks ago, last month, right? I think.
Yeah, maybe, about a month.
Yeah. And so tell us, what's the biggest result you've gotten after finishing? Let's learn about that.
I think the biggest change for me is feeling like I know what we're doing now,
Mm-hmm.
like in terms of just the way it sits in me and how it feels to be in my skin in my own house. I feel like I know what we're doing and how to respond, and like that it will be okay, or that we're working toward things that work for us much better than what we were doing before.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's certainty, right?
Yeah, yeah, and like a map. It feels like I have a map now, whereas before it was kind of like maybe I should try to be, like I don't know, stricter, or like do we need to read 1, 2, 3 magic, or like, did I already screw it up too much to come back, from this? And
Yes.
now it's kind of like, okay, I always have this sense of here's the parameters that I'm working within, and I know more or less how to approach it. Like I can touch in with where I want to go from here, and then have a sense of how to implement it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so important, that overarching calmness of
Yeah.
how to change where you're at and where you keep want to grow and parent your kids.
And just feeling a lot less lost. Like I
Mm,
think for me, parenting HSCs has been sometimes lonely and confusing because what we're dealing with isn't what a lot of my friends are dealing with their kids. Like, um, it's like I'll feel like my kids, especially my 9-year-old, can do the hard stuff, but not the easy stuff, And so we're having all these meltdowns at 6, 7, and 8 that other people have moved beyond, or we're still doing things for our kids that other people aren't doing for them, and it's like I didn't know how to get out of that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So, talk
Yeah.
to me more about that. Let's describe that problem. Before you found me, what was your
hmm
biggest struggles? What were you really worried about or frustrated with in parenting?
We were mostly worrying about my 6-year-old and the relationship between the two of them. So there was a lot of fighting, especially my daughter, like, tackling my son or provoking things with my son, like really looking for a lot of negative attention
Yeah.
from him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing that we were dealing with a lot was a lot of meltdowns and like kind of non-compliance, I guess, for lack of a better word, with our 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And we, for a long time, I actually wasn't totally sure what was going on with her. It took a long time for me to identify her as an HSC,
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't look the way I thought that they looked, which is how my 9-year-old looks.
Yeah.
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 So, talk to me about why it was so important for you to fix this now. I mean, like you said, you're a therapist. You know some of this stuff. You already knew your oldest was a highly sensitive kid. and you were
Yeah.
still struggling. So share with me more about that.
Yeah. Um, so the thing that was different for me about my 6-year-old is that she is clammed up. So like you don't get much information from her. Um, and it would even be hard to tell, like, was she tracking things that were happening and not able to report it, or was she even just kind of checked out all the time?
Yeah.
Especially in any kind of social situation or like anything outside the house.
Yes.
Inside the house with just us, she felt really wild and rough. Like the tackling her brother and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like her school interactions were really concerning to me, especially as a therapist, because I kind of saw in my head all these ways that this could turn out in like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't really talking at school. So she's in first grade now, and she did not talk at school in preschool. Mm-hmm. And then minimally talked in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And we started working with you right before she started first grade.
Yeah, end of July.
Yep. And she would, and yet she's always liked people. So like she doesn't want to stay home and not be around people. She wants to be at everything. But we didn't know what to make of the way she like wouldn't engage once she got there. And once someone suggested like, let's go do this, she would just follow them and do it. And so we were really worried thinking ahead about like peer pressure, lack of like self-leadership and making her own decisions, and how that might end up for her.
Yeah.
She really felt like a follower in that sense.
Knowing what you know as an adult therapist who specializes working with HSPs, why was it so compelling for you to address this for your kid who's 6? I mean, lots of parents who are listening, watching, we can get into a pattern of seeing something and being like, oh, my kid will grow out of it, or I have plenty of time to address this.
Right. Gosh, it all actually happens faster than we expect it to. Like even with my 9-year-old, I can feel how much less influence I have now than I used to, and how much more influence peers have. Mm-hmm. And so looking at a 6-year-old, I knew that if I wasn't in there having some influence and helping her learn how to regulate herself in the next couple of years, then my window would be starting to close already. And she'd either be like copying what other people told her to do to make herself feel a certain way, or she'd have to experiment with like substances or like stuff on the internet or whatever in order to regulate herself up and down. Right. And that's not what I want for her.
No, it does.
Right. And
no.
And I think with HSPs, a lot of times there are folks who really can talk about their feelings, or like will get sort of looped in feelings. And, that's more like how I see my son, like really articulate, wants to talk about stuff. And working with those folks as adults, it's easier to get in because they have this language to describe their internal landscape. And so you have access to it, like even as a therapist working with them as an adult. Mm-hmm. But people who don't develop a sense of like, here's what I'm feeling, here's what's right for me, here's where I want to see this go, and can't articulate it, there's not even a really easy way to help them.
Yeah.
Because it's closed off. It's like that language wasn't learned.
Yeah. And I think the danger around that brings me to an important point that I don't know if you see as well, being a professional in the field, but in our mental health field, being trained as therapists, we can sometimes fall into the trap that we're taught that if somebody can't get there, then they're not ready to change.
Uh-huh.
And, that perception that that they're not trying hard enough, or that they can't, that might not be the right time for them to make the progress they're hoping for if they're coming in my door as a therapist.
Right. Yeah. I see that a lot, like especially in the sense of a therapist wanting to like put blame back on a client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. The therapists who fire their HSP clients, right?
Yeah, like
You're done.
because, well, for instance, like, this is talk therapy and you're having a hard time
You
talking,
can't talk.
right? Like
Yeah.
that makes it a tough situation.
You must not be ready.
Yeah, and it's like these folks need a certain kind of warming up and like actually someone reaching in to teach these skills that maybe other kids come by a little more instinctively. And it's so much easier if your parent does that for you when you're a child.
Right?
Yeah. Than to try and figure it out as an adult. I mean, it is possible as an adult. That's the work I do, but
Years.
there's so much more that can happen in terms of like growing up feeling connected and loved and fulfilled if it was one of your own caregivers who was like, let me help you figure out how to be here this way. Yeah. And we were looking at our 6-year-old and thinking like, you must just feel so disconnected. It was so confusing to me. Like I really had spent years trying to figure out what is it that's going on with her. Nothing that the pediatrician sees they thought was off, or people would just describe her as shy. But I was like, something's really off. Like I'm not able to like connect directly with her. And, I don't want that for her.
Right. Your mama bear alarm bells were like,
yeah, I was like, I know
up.
something's up here. Yeah. And, the other piece that I was seeing that again wasn't like concerning enough to the teacher, but for me definitely felt off, was that I wasn't really seeing her learn at school. Mm-hmm. And yet I was seeing like, her language is developing, but then she'll only use it in certain situations. And it was all very confusing to me, but now I can look back on it and piece it all together and be like, okay, she was overwhelmed in these really stimulating environments. And the way she was so overwhelmed that the way she copes with it was to just shut off.
Yeah, exactly. And that I remember in our first conversation when you booked a call with me and we talked about, you're like, will this work for a kid like my daughter?
Right.
And I was like,
I mean,
yes.
that was so eye-opening for me. So I found your group through another Facebook group actually that you and I are both in for moms who have private practices, therapists. And at some point someone else had posted about highly sensitive children, and they had really encouraged folks to join your ninja group. And so I'd done that, knowing that my 9-year-old was, but also just kind of watching to see like, is this possible that these two kids could have the same temperament type and yet it manifests so differently? Yes. Especially, I'm an HSP myself and she's so different from me. Like, what am I not getting here?
Yeah.
And so I just, as an HSP, I just watched for a really long time.
I know, right? You're like, I've been in your group for 5 months. And I'm like, 5 months.
So that's about how long it takes me to really, chew on something. But then when I'm ready, I'm ready. But I was really looking to see, like, so part of my skepticism about like, whether it would be helpful was just as another therapist. I was like, I know kind of a lot about HSPs. Like, is there going to be a lot of new information here? And one of the things that really started to get me thinking was, you had said, you addressed someone talking about kids who just completely shut out after they make a mistake or do something wrong, shut down, especially like, like my daughter hits my son or something. And I had never like successfully followed up on an incident like that and had any kind of like dialogue or repair or anything. Like she would like maybe hit him, disappear to her room. If I came to talk to her, it was like I wasn't even there. Like she had the stone wall up. Yeah. And he talks about that, and that really got me thinking like, okay, I recognize that really clearly in her. And now I started to feel clear that I had stuff to learn from you. Yeah.
You're like, Take that
I'm
chip
like
off your
really
shoulder, Ashley.
I guess.
Ashley, this is so crazy that you're saying that because you just showed up
Right.
ready to learn. Like just was like there was no convincing I had to do. And everybody has their own journey, right? And I love what I do, so it doesn't matter. But one thing that I just lit up on fire working with you was that you came with like a baby's view of the world, regardless of your expertise.
Uh-huh. Oh, you mean like ready to
Yeah,
learn?
like just
Ready
just
to learn.
oh yeah, like just ready to learn. Took off any old hats that you had, any perspective that you had, and you were like, okay, I'm here. I don't know what I don't know, and I'm ready to just pretend or know that I need to learn. I'm here for a reason. I need to learn. That's the
Yeah.
definition of coachability, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, um, you and I do very different work as therapists. Like
Yeah.
I do the longer term, like I do the repair for folks who didn't get this, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it looks a lot different. And I was clear, like the skills that I have, they're often really helpful with my son, but they're getting me nowhere with my daughter. I mean, I need to like sit and listen. And I was a really serious student in boot camp. Like
You
I was like,
were. That's great.
okay, I'm going to do all of it.
Yes. 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 It was great. It was great. And so, my next question, we talked about your skepticism. But what else did you try before you found me?
Um, I mean, I personally felt like I was already bringing some stuff to the table. So I tried all that.
You're like, I tried me.
Yeah.
I tried me and my
Tried me for a
expertise.
really long time. Used that up. I had done some other parenting workshops that were um, like kind of like attachment based discipline or whatever, I mean, or whatever, how to toddler management and stuff. And I had done a lot of reading, but I have always felt like and I think this might just be the case with HSCs, like it just didn't all fit us.
Yeah.
Like we weren't that simple or straightforward. And like I said, we're having a harder time with the simpler stuff in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, if only I known you when we were still fighting about brushing teeth, but like, that was years for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of struggle. And then the idea that like other kids were brushing their own teeth, like we just mastered getting it done,
Yes.
period.
Yes. Yes.
And getting dressed and things like that. Like that's where we were getting hung up. And books for elementary school kids aren't dealing with that.
No.
Yeah. And the thing that really struck me, I mean, as soon as I started boot camp and started your material and saw the way you structure things, is that you have got all of the bases covered. It's so comprehensive. Yeah. I mean, I was super impressed, which was a relief for me, because I did go into it wondering like, I don't know, it's just
Sure,
different.
go
Like
ahead.
when you're
Tell
there,
everybody. There's so many people who are, they're in the same boat as you. So share.
Well, like I think as a therapist, you have this awareness that other therapists are also just people.
Yes.
Whereas like when you're not one, they can seem a little more like they know so much or whatever, and I'm maybe a little more skeptical. I'm like, well, she's just a person. So, but like your material is so comprehensive and it covers like absolutely every aspect of things that we run into. And if it wasn't in the material, then in one of the calls we'd bring it up or another group member would bring it up. And it was like, you had seen this before. It was such a relief because it feels like when we were looking for answers elsewhere, it was all stuff. It just the stuff that we were looking at didn't really apply to us all the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Ashley, let's move into that. What was one of the things that I had you do that sounded crazy?
Huh.
Or the things that I told you, one of the first things where you were like, I don't know who this lady is and what's going on here.
No, I really ate it up.
I know. I was like, this is kind of a tough question for you,
I
but I
was a
like to
pretty
ask it.
quick convert. I think one of the things that surprised me
Or
most
maybe a
was
husband.
when I came to you about homework and my 9-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Homework has always been just a huge dramatic issue
Mm-hmm.
for him since it started in kindergarten, which I also thought was ridiculous. And so I was kind of struggling with that myself. And, and you like gave me permission to take less responsibility for him, which is what I wanted to, but I didn't feel like a good parent could do that somehow or something. Like I was supposed to be trying
Yeah.
this hard.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the piece that ended up surprising us the most was like, there are some ways in which working with you has gotten us way more involved. And then there are some ways in which it's helped us be able to just let go of it and have it be our kids' thing.
Yeah.
Which feels right to me when I think about it. Like I do want them to learn about responsibility now and not when the stakes are higher.
Right.
But it's this really interesting blend of like putting a lot more in a way. Like there were a lot of things that you had us do toward family time and games and like restructuring our household. And then at the same time, letting us back out. Like the time my 9-year-old forgot his backpack in my car. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, forgot it at home, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's the kind of kid who would freak out about that. That would be really upsetting for him. He'd be super worried about getting in trouble at school. And he's hopping out of my car on the way to school. And he says, "Oh, where's my backpack? You forgot my backpack. Can you go get it?" And my first reaction was, "Oh my gosh, let's reschedule everything and like go get the backpack." Because he's going to flip out. This is going to be really hard for him. And I want to keep him from feeling the shame that he's going to feel, embarrassment, fear. I want to help all that not happen. And then I, slowed it down. I called my husband. I was like, I was going to ask you to run over here with it, but actually I think, would you be able to do it when you are driving by anyway later on? And then I reached out to you to just confirm, like, here's what we're leaning toward doing. And you fully supported it. And it was so good for us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It actually didn't even have the intensity of the meltdown that I would have expected because I was ready for it when I picked him up. Mm-hmm. I had to just correct him once that I hadn't forgotten it, mm-hmm. that he had. And, it was like the beginning of a new level of responsibility for him and off of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think I was more confused about how to do that before I worked with you, how to not take responsibility for him, but still have him feel like we care.
Yes. Yes. Because this is the nuanced work we have to do with parenting highly sensitive kids, right? Because that's not brand new information, me telling you to do that, but how and when and mm-hmm. what makes it turn out well versus a freaking disaster.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we make it.
Yeah, like there's this way that you have us do it that really suits me. It's like, it's compassionate, mm-hmm. but it's not like coddling. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think it's really easy for me to coddle, frankly, in some ways with my 9-year-old because mm-hmm. he's so sensitive and gets so upset. Yep. And I want him to learn now how to weather those storms. Mm-hmm. And I think the way a lot of parents do it is because it's uncomfortable for them to see their kids suffer, they just kind of like push them off the ship. You know what I mean? And call it tough love.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so what was really nice to me about the way you approach things is that it was tough love, because that's just, I feel like a lot of times that's just a phrase to cover up like kind of cruelty or heartlessness, like I just don't want to feel that. But this is like, I'm going to let you feel your own stuff, and I'll be compassionate with you. And, like as you go through boot camp, the approach gets really strategic, I think. And so it's like, and I'm also going to be having you do that in increments that you can handle.
Yeah.
Which is the other really nice thing. So like with my 6-year-old, I kind of wanted to be just like, well, you just figure out how to get ready in the morning, like when I was fed up. But, and I don't think anywhere else, with folks who don't get HSCs, would people be like, I mean, this isn't what you said, but let's start with socks, But it truly, like, that's what it takes with them. And you're really helpful at like breaking that down. And the cool thing is that we start with something like socks. And now, honestly, our mornings are very easy. I mean, when we started working with you, we would like dress her like a limp rag doll, I'd be like pulling her arm in and stuff. And now we're at the point where usually she will choose, because it's up to her, to put on her own clothes the night before. She will put them all on, get them out and put them on, and put the dirty clothes in the hamper. And in the morning, she will get herself out of bed. And if she wants to use words and ask me to carry her to the bathroom for teeth and hair, I will carry her. But I let her ask me now, that's like one of the kinds of things that's hard for her. And we do those quickly and without issue. Whereas before it'd be like, I'd finally get her in the bathroom, and then she'd be like, I want daddy. And then daddy would come up and do a third of it. And then she'd want me, and everyone's stressed. And yeah.
Tag team parenting. And what we're doing is noticing that you guys aren't at the point yet where she's 100% independent in the mornings. And it's also true that she's not hitting her brother anymore. She's not creating this chaos after school. And so
she's not hurting the way she was before. So like before, the idea of getting ready to her was so paralyzing.
Yes.
That she couldn't even start to get through it.
Yes.
And now she has some help, which I mean, feels like pretty age appropriate to me, that I'm putting her hair up for her and stuff, but it's none of it is drama.
Right. Yeah. Right. And how certain do you feel, knowing where you are now, that you'll be able to stop, aside from doing her hair, given the fact that she's 6, other physical assistance in helping her in the mornings in the next 3 months?
I think if we decide that that's our priority right now, that we would easily be there in 3 months. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And, you mentioned something really important, because when we think about where you guys were at and the struggles that she was having, I want to talk about some of the challenges that you observed in school and where she is now. And then also what your afternoons looked like and how that happens now.
Right. Okay. So school had me really concerned, especially I think because my 9-year-old was kind of one of those HSCs who was really good at school, and it wasn't really an issue aside from the homework. With her, there just didn't seem to be any progress. Like, she hadn't nailed all the letters in the alphabet. And when I would come into the class to help, I would notice that she was like really far behind where other kids were on classwork. Or like they'd send home worksheets at the end of the week and hers would be essentially blank. And I knew just from having observed that she was just sitting in there not really knowing what was happening around her. So they would, teach a lesson on the overhead and then give them worksheets to do it on their own. And it was sort of like she hadn't seen the lesson, and also like she didn't quite know, like, oh, this is what we're doing. It was like whatever the teacher said didn't reach her all the way.
Yeah.
So this year we started working with you, I think 2 weeks before school started, which was a coincidence, but really great timing for us.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of changed the way things were going at home. And then school started and we had your support with that transition, which is, can be an exciting one.
Exciting is an operative word. Now for you, right?
Right. Yeah.
Not the word you used in August.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God. And I was prepared for that though, because, like we went to back to school night and her teacher, she's a really lovely teacher who asked what she should know about our kiddo. And I was already prepared from my work with you to like be able to explain, like, here's what's going on with her. And if it feels like she's not listening or, she doesn't get what's going on, like you can just connect with her one-on-one in a quiet setting. And anyway, so fast forward, like 3 months that we've been in school, I've had 2 phone calls and 1 conference with the teacher. And they've all been like more or less based on my anxiety about how things were going and there's nothing reportable from class, but, I'd be like, is she talking in class? Has she ever raised her hand? And as soon as the first call, the teacher was letting me know that she was not seeing anything this year that I had described from the previous years.
Wow.
Yeah. Like that didn't sound familiar to her.
Wow. Totally new kid.
Yep. So when we had our conference, which is also really great for me to hear, like these changes, we're seeing changes at home and they've been really helpful, and really big changes are happening outside of home. And,
yes.
That's something huge that we're celebrating. I mean, that was what was really worrying us, and so a couple weeks ago we had our parent teacher conference, and she went through like all the metrics with me. And one of the things that she shared with me that touched me so deeply was that they had done a reading comprehension test where the teacher had read something out loud, and then the students had their own answer sheet where they marked the answers, and she had scored 24 out of 25 on the reading comprehension. I know. I thought I was going to cry. I was like, my child did? She got 24 out of 25, because that to me sums up that's a measure of everything that we were concerned about, right? Like, in order to do well in reading comp, you need to be able to listen to someone talking. You have to recognize that someone's talking and you're supposed to be listening. You have to be calm enough and regulated enough to listen to it. And then you have to retain enough of it, which was the other thing that was happening, was that she wouldn't retain stuff from school in order to answer these questions about it. Yeah. I was so happy for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. The other cool thing is that she's had, and this is, I think, how we ended up on the phone with the teacher, was that she had a couple times at school where something had happened with a classmate and she had cried or been upset. And it gave me a chance to tell the teacher, that's really exciting for us. Because previously she was like a stone wall. Like, she wouldn't have been there enough to get her feelings hurt, and then not there enough to show it or communicate it. And the day of the conference, something had happened in class where, someone had done something and my daughter's feelings were hurt, and my daughter cried, and a couple of her friends like comforted her. And the teacher was very thoughtful and aware of what we're working on, went up to her privately instead of addressing it in front of the group. My daughter was able to tell her that she was sad. She was able to tell her why. Beautiful. They called over her friends, and the teacher facilitated an apology, and my daughter was able to like repair with her.
I know. What? Ashley.
I know.
From the icicle child that we had coming in at the end of July, literally like no awareness, no, just not grounded, not present in the moment, available and open to, mid boot camp, where she would hold it all in and then explode and then finally tell you what was bothering her. We got her through that. But then now it's not even a thing.
I know. It's really amazing. Yeah. And the thing that was really helpful for me too, that I had learned to conceptualize all this is like, my kiddo's been frozen because she hasn't been able to feel the dysregulated feelings. And she's going to move down through those before she gets to regulation. And
Yes.
so for us, crying at school is a win.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because that means she's at school.
Yes.
Like she's in her body at
Intellectually,
school.
emotionally.
Yeah.
Yes, she's present.
She's feeling school.
She's there.
Yep. And so now, like if I get especially if I get a heads up from, like like a talkative kid's parents or something, like if I know something happened at school, then I can just name like something happened at school today and you're sad about it. And then we can go through it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So no more
Which
Spanish
is why,
Inquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, which never got me anywhere.
No,
like it was just,
yeah. 20 questions. No, it never goes anywhere. You're like a rabbit hole. Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Anybody there?
Exactly. Yeah, I would always feel like, are you there? Because she just literally wouldn't answer me. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to get a little clinical here because we know that HSPs can be misdiagnosed with ADHD. Mm-hmm. So thinking of what you know in terms of the inattentiveness, inability to comprehend, if you had gone the educational route, spoken to the teacher, let's get my kid evaluated from a learning disability standpoint, where do you think you'd be?
I mean, I've thought about this a lot because when I was trying to figure out what was going on, I would like assess all this stuff myself. And I was thinking a lot more often, I would wonder about autism and about selective mutism, and it was like, I think if we had pursued those, we just would have found ourselves in a much more clinical and pathologizing place where it was like, there's something wrong with her.
Yeah.
And she's actually picking up on a lot. She's not missing everything. And she would have felt that, like she even was, able to tell me before that she didn't like being called shy because it didn't match what she was feeling. And I think if she had felt like something was wrong with her, it would have really like shut her down a lot more.
Further into the hole.
Yeah. It's more like, okay, she does stuff her own way. She does get like super focused on what she's working on, but it's not like a clinical diagnosis. It's like we're finally seeing her personality. Yeah. Which is really exciting.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I know. I wanted to know who she was. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, and that's the thing, like when on our first call, you said, I feel like I don't know my kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was so sad and scary to me. Yeah. Like, where are you in there?
Who are you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we're getting to know her. She's like pretty clever. She's a little bit funny, like she's actually really picking up on a lot of stuff. She's pretty observant.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Yeah.
Peeling off the layers of the onion.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it's felt like with her. Yeah.
And not having to wait forever to do it too, I mean, this is August.
Right. Yeah.
First week of December now.
Thaw happened really quickly. Yep.
I love how you call it the thaw. I love it. Like the thaw.
Yeah, it did happen really quickly. And it's also been great to have this feedback from the teacher and, that I knew how to bring her on board so that I could know just how much work she's doing outside of our house, which helps me be more patient when things don't always feel quick or easy inside our house. Yeah. And that's why, like we were saying, her doing all her own grooming isn't a priority to me right now because we've shifted to really working on like expression and the way you talk to people and stuff. Because as she's thawing, it's like, okay, we're hearing more from you now. You have lots of bumpy feelings about that, and so it's not always like as kind as it could be. And you're open to working on that right now. Like it's really neat.
Yes. When you have a system, you know that you're not putting things on, you're not like forgetting things or brushing it under the rug. You're just putting it on the side burner, not the back burner,
Exactly.
just the
Yep.
side burner.
Yep. That's exactly what it's like. It's like the prioritizing really helped me not feel as overwhelmed too, because if there's something where I'm like, okay, this could be way better. Am I choosing to focus on that right now, or am I choosing to come up on that one later? If I know that I'm not focusing on it right now, then it's way easier for me to be calm about it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course this is hard. We're not working on this one yet.
Yeah. 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 So, how have you changed as a person, a parent? You kind of just touched a little bit on that. Of course it's hard. I mean, it speaks to validating yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, an interesting side effect of the group is learning more about myself as an HSP.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the ways I've changed is just seeing stuff that I struggle with and recognizing it as that instead of like a failing, you know? So like, my thing is that I will get overwhelmed easily. And so I can see that now. It's like, oh, that's me getting overwhelmed. That's just like part of the way I'm built. Here are the things I can do to have that not be such a big issue. But, it's also just part of the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other big thing for me is that, thermometer versus thermostat distinction, which I'm not sure if you talk about in the group, if you've talked about in the group or not, but like I feel like less reactive.
Yeah.
Whereas before we started working with you, I mean, I just felt like I was being pummeled by my kids, especially by my 6-year-old, because everything felt so hard. And, the getting them to brush teeth was just so hard. And it felt like, why? It's hard not to take it personally. Like, why are you making this so hard for us or for me?
Yeah.
And my mindset has shifted a lot more toward, you're having a hard time with this. I learned a lot about what is hard for them personally, each one of them personally, and can put it in perspective easier when things are rough.
And I love hearing this because what I see, some of the catchphrases that I use in terms of the years of education training, it's not new information, but it's put in a way that you can actually make it useful for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So like I knew all of this stuff, but no one had ever asked me to work on it, like specifically and incrementally before. And so, the progression through boot camp, the way you have things laid out, it made a ton of sense to me. And, it started by working more on me and my reactions. And it was so concrete what you were asking us to do, like the homework, the exercises and stuff, that I don't know, it just felt doable. It just felt doable this time. Yeah. Also, I was like, I was committed. So I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, yeah, I need to do something for them to try to write this. And so I'm not going to waste this opportunity. I'm really going to do it.
That's really what it takes for parents. If you think about where you guys are at, everybody watching, what it takes somebody who's willing to know that you're all in. Like there's no what ifs that hold you back. There's no, and that's again why I loved, and even your husband Matthias, like I love him too, in the sense that he can we share what we laughed about last week about what he said?
I can't remember what it is.
Oh,
so
okay,
go for
good.
it.
So I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
Because one thing I require is that both parents show up, right? And so, because I think that's so important in terms of where, you having your expertise, being an adult therapist who specializes in working with HSPs, repairing all the childhood hullabaloo and baloney and sometimes trauma, but also childhood emotional neglect, just by nature of mismatched parenting. It can put you in this giant dichotomy. And lots of moms who read a ton of shit on Google or books can put themselves in this dichotomy too. So it's not just by the nature of your profession, but
Sure.
um,
Yeah.
of like you're trying to teach him and parent, but you're both missing, and so then you're stuck, and
And
so
not unique to us. Like he would really rather not be taught by me, you
exactly.
know.
Oh, interesting.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. That was a
Exactly.
huge straw for me, actually, was that you wanted both of us there and you asked the same thing of both of us. And
Yeah.
and just knowing, I mean, that was the other thing we had tried, was that I had done a bunch of stuff without his help,
Yeah.
and having you deliver it instead, and the format that you use is so well done and professional that it's easy for someone who's kind of not in our field to buy in.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Skeptical.
Yeah.
We can call it what we is. Skeptical.
Yeah.
He was like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
really, is this really what I need to do?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. So
really?
I remember what he said to me what I told you last week.
So go ahead, tell everybody what's going on and what we're dealing with after what,
Yeah.
90
He came
days?
to me one day. I mean, you're talking about the mansplaining, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Go
He
ahead.
came to me one day. This was not during boot camp, thank God. But and he had been reading something online, and he wanted me to know how interesting it was that he'd learned that it actually matters how you talk to people. That has an impact on how they hear you and whether or not they're willing to work with you. And I was like, I mean, I knew you when I was getting my master's degree in that, right? Yeah.
I'm dying still hearing this for the second time because I love him and I'm not Southern, but bless his heart.
Right. I know, right? But he's right.
He's
It
amazing.
actually does matter how it's
Yes,
delivered. And if
that's
it's
right.
delivered by someone who's not your wife, it is apparently like way more effective.
And it sinks in to the point where you can start skeptical. You can start questioning. You can start being like, all right, I'm here. I might as well, I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. But I'm going to ask lots of questions, see if I can poke any holes in this. And then 90 days later, it's your identity. You already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, and you come to your own conclusion. And so just that, we laugh at it, but I also think it's so important for parents to hear this, that you can shift the whole dynamic of the family as well as who you are as people and what you believe and understand of the human brain and development and relationships in rapid time.
Yeah. Yeah. You really can.
So, last question before we finish here, and cause we could talk all day. I love you so much. Um, what what are the big takeaways that you want the parents who are watching this to understand? What's very, and it doesn't have to be one thing. Like, what's really important?
Um, you you're not supposed to know how to do this on your own. Yeah. That this
Wow.
is not just an intuitive thing
Mm-hmm.
that you know how to do. I mean, parenting an HSC and having a family, like it's actually requires a lot of intention. And it's not bad about you that you need help with that. That seems just like the way it is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that you can really help your kids change without feeling like you're forcing something that's not true for them, or like you're being harsh.
Yeah.
So because I think a lot of the ways discipline or changing your kids is sold to people is like shaping them up,
Yeah.
or like that tough love stuff. And actually you can have limits and it be super loving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Great. So, take you back to when you first got in the ninja group.
Okay. The like the one that I was in for so long. Yeah. Okay. Before boot camp. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Knowing what you know now, would you have waited 5 months to make this decision for your family?
Hmm. Um, I'm not really a regret person, so I feel like it's okay with me that I have a slow build and then I know.
Yeah.
But I think what I would that would have been helpful for me to get sooner is that this will actually work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wasn't sure of. What I was scanning for all that time was like, but would this actually help us?
Yeah.
And now on the other side of it, like what I could tell myself is there's so much support and effective material in boot camp that if you show up and do it even a lot of the way, not like 100%, a lot will come out of it.
Yeah.
That it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I think what I was sitting on for those 5 months was like, would this be especially like a purchase that I regret?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And absolutely not. Like if I could have known then, like this stands up to what I'm hoping it will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So, for other parents who are skeptical, trying to figure that out for themselves, what do you think is important for them um, to know, feel certain in order to know what's right for their family and the direction they need to take?
Say that in another way.
Sure.
I didn't quite. Yeah.
That's fine. For families who are struggling with what you were struggling with, skeptical about what's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think will help them feel certain that they can do it themselves? They can make this change.
Mm-hmm. I felt like that free consultation phone call that you offer, that you do to both for us to get to know you and also for you to screen people for whether or not they're suitable for boot camp, mm-hmm. is the thing that made it clear to me that this would help. Mm-hmm. And that I was waiting on that one for longer than I needed to. Mm-hmm. And that just like reaching out to you to talk, you were gathering information from us, but you were also putting it back in a new framework and helping us see things, I think, more clearly than it felt in our heads. Mm-hmm. And that was the clarifying call for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my suggestion, actually, would be like, you have nothing to lose by doing the consultation. And I would recommend that for folks who are considering boot camp, to just go ahead and do the consultation.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, guys, you heard it from Ashley. MeganThompsonCoaching.com/talk. This is so funny. I was like preparing you for this. Like, it's not going to be this kind of. I just heard that last. And that's what you say, Bill.
Right. No, but it's true. I mean, I hadn't really put it together before, but for me, that's what kind of an intake is like with any therapist. Yeah. You offer them what you want to work with, and they organize it for you in their framework and let you know, like, here's how I see this working. Yeah. And that's what that call was for me. It was like, oh, Megan has a plan already. Mm-hmm. There's a structure to this already. Mm-hmm. And already everything I've told her about my two kids that feels so insurmountable to me fits with stuff she's seen and worked with before. Like, she's ready for us. Yeah. So that's what the call did for me.
Ready than ever. So last thing then, I guess, because I think there's something that swims around in a lot of parents' heads, is the difference between therapy and coaching in this setting. Obviously I've got, I've got the credentials, but I'm not your therapist and
This
then I'm
is
not your
not
kid's
therapy.
therapist.
Yeah, that was really interesting for me as a therapist, by the way. This is very practical and responsive to what's happening in the immediate moment, whereas therapy is more like receptive and reflective in a way, if that makes sense. I think parents who have taken their kids to therapy will recognize this, that like you take them and it's sort of like, okay, but now what? Whereas this is like, your kids aren't going to boot camp, you are. This is a how to,
Yeah.
right? And the thing that's different from like reading a book or just taking a course that's not interactive is that we bring to you our very specific situations, and you're like, I mean, you have an uncanny memory for tracking people's kids and what makes them tick. And so you are addressing each particular kiddo in like what we need to do next or whatever. Like, but it's very guided and deliberate. And therapy is much more spacious and slow. Yeah.
Slow is not a word in my vocabulary, Ashley.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how you would stand that actually. I'm trying to imagine you dealing with that part of therapy. But it is. It's like you wait for stuff to happen in therapy and in coaching, or at least this coaching program, it's the only one I've been in. You make stuff happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. Yeah.
But that's how it has to be done. You know, I teared up when you said that, you know, how what makes each kid tick. Like there's no other way to do that. There's no other way to
Yeah,
create that.
I feel that way as an adult therapist, but I actually think most therapists don't. I think most therapists treat problems
Yes.
and not people.
Yes.
And that was probably another one of my hesitations, was like, would a one size fits all thing work for my kids? But what your program is not one size fits all. I mean, it's like there's a general size and you do all that, and then there's a lot of tailoring that you personally do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great, because it's like the things that help my 6-year-old don't help my 9-year-old, even though they're both HSCs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've got, I mean, it's really funny to see you work in a group, because like you've got everyone's kid dialed down, right? Yeah.
We should take that offline. But one thing I think is funny about that is like, so I was talking to somebody over video, and they they pointed out to me that when I think, my eyes scan to the top of the ceiling.
Yeah.
And now I can't stop thinking about it. So then you bring this up today.
Well, it's funny because I realized at some point, like, you haven't even seen these kids. Like, you've like never even seen photos of my kids. How do you have them so like nailed down, you know? But you really do. Lots of kids up there.
What's that? Growing up, we had that, what's that, oh shoot, where you could switch it and you could see the film.
Viewfinder. Because they
Is that
make
what it's
those
called?
they put them on
They
phones now,
still
where it's
make
like
it.
this and you twist it and you're
Yeah,
looking at different
yeah,
pictures.
like Disney
Yeah.
pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how my
Yours
brain
is
works.
like, it's like a chart note or something with like kids' pertinent details in but like you get their personality out of it. I really enjoy that about you.
Well, Ashley, it's been a pleasure. I thank you so, so much. And I can't wait,
Yeah.
to see you monthly showing up too. Like, this is not stopping. We've got you figured out, and it's happening, and it's just so lovely to serve your family and to serve you, because it's awesome. I just love it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your help.
Yeah. All right. Everybody, I'll post the link. Go ahead, book that call. Ashley, suggested. We'll figure this out. We'll make sure that we know what's going on with your family, whether or not this is the right fit, and how we're going to tailor what I teach to your specific family's needs, just like we saw Ashley with, two very, very, very different children.
Mm-hmm.
And the success. So So awesome. Thank you so much. Have a
You're
wonderful hump
welcome.
day. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.